999! Don't ever do these things in Germany. Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. I am Donnie, and along with my wife Aubrey, we are two Americans currently living in Germany with our baby, sharing all of our experiences living and traveling throughout Europe. After a few years of travel being put on pause, we've noticed a huge increase in Americans traveling to Europe, and places that we go to are flooded with tourists once again. With this going on, I started noticing some tendencies tourists, and specifically I am talking about American tourists, have been bringing with them that I thought I might make some suggestions to not do as a fellow American who used to make the same mistakes in this country, but learned after living in Germany for 4 years, doing these things should be avoided. And that's exactly what I'm going to talk about today in my video. Maybe not verboten, but rules that are unspoken. One of the don'ts I want to talk about is surprisingly tricky and complicated, and I have seen many tourists in Germany struggling to figure out what to do with their trash, specifically with plastic bottles. We've seen our family get so excited that they finally figure out where to throw away the plastic trash in our home amongst our 4 different trash cans, only to then be confused when we tell them the plastic bottle they have thrown away actually goes in a separate pile to be taken back to the grocery store, even though it is plastic and the trash can is labeled plastic, because they paid a deposit on that bottle when they bought it without knowing they did. We then also have to teach them it's not just plastic bottles, and some glass bottles also go back to the same place as the plastic bottles, even though at home we have to separate the plastic and glass. Then, to make it more confusing, for those visiting Germany, they get used to bottles going back to the store, but then we have to teach them that not all bottles go back to the store for a deposit, and some, like wine bottles, have to go to a separate glass collection point in our town. So here is the don't. Don't throw away bottles in Germany that have this logo on it. I know, you should receive a PhD if you figure out the German trash system, but if you know to look for this logo, then you'll be golden. In Germany, when you buy a drink with this logo on it, you also paid a deposit on the bottle that you receive back when you return it to the store. Granted, you might say, look, I'm a tourist and I don't want to be bothered with the 25 cents or whatever deposit I'll get back if I carry this bottle around with me to return it, so I'll just go ahead and recycle it. And I get that, but also you can do the German thing, which is to either give it to a homeless person or put it next to a public trash can so that someone in need can collect it and return it so that they could at least benefit from the small deposit. Otherwise, if you don't do this, you are literally just throwing money away. Real quick, I want to thank all of our patrons and YouTube channel members. I really appreciate all of the support in helping me bring you this content. And if there are some of you looking for other ways to support this work, simply hitting the like and subscribe button really goes a long way, and I would appreciate you doing that. Generally speaking, we all have stereotypes of different places, countries, or people groups. And I'm not just talking about negative stereotypes. I'm also talking about positive stereotypes, or even, I guess, neutral stereotypes. And this has to do exactly with one of my don'ts, and that is, don't come to Germany to reinforce your stereotypes or ideas about Germany, whether positive or negative. Of course, this really isn't specific to Germany, and I can apply this to any place, and this is something I still am personally working on myself, to be honest. What I often find myself doing, and I see tourists in Germany do, is coming in with ideas of what Germany is like, and without trying to simply experience and see what Germany truly is like, they look for ways to reinforce or prove their ideas whether they know they're doing it or not. For example, say someone had the stereotype that all Germans have purple hair. They come to Germany, look for a person with purple hair and say, welp, I saw Germans with purple hair. They really do have purple hair, but then ignore the millions of others without purple hair. By the way, do any of you actually have purple hair? Or maybe they believe that Germans are extremely efficient and always punctual. Take one train ride, and that train happens to actually be on time this one time, and they say, see, Germans are punctual and efficient. But they don't look into it anymore and find that this definitely isn't the case, at least when it comes to the German trains. But like many European countries, this is particularly important not to do in Germany because so many people have one image of Germany in their mind, and as we've talked about in so many videos on our channel, Germany has hundreds if not thousands of different cultures within this single country, and not all are the lederhosen wearing, beer drinking, and white sausage eating cultures. So you can't come to Germany, go to Bavaria, see someone fitting that description and reinforce your idea that is what Germany is when you haven't been to North Germany to see someone wearing this traditional clothing. So like I said, this is surprisingly a lot more difficult than I wish it was, and I am actively having to make sure I'm not just looking for ways to reinforce stereotypes that I even have after making a career of digging into and learning about Germany and German culture, but it is important to at least attempt to do this. Following the previous don't, my next don't is definitely don't come to Germany expecting train travel to be perfect and cheap. As I mentioned in the last section, there definitely is an idea that train travel in Germany is extremely efficient and especially cheap. And although compared to the US, Germany definitely is significantly better in this arena, there still are some challenges tourists don't expect when they come here. In November last year, I talked about how Germans don't fit into American stereotypes of Germans and talked about the punctuality of German trains. Deutsche Bahn updates on their website monthly that shows the punctuality of their trains, in which they define a train being on time if the scheduled arrival time was exceeded by less than 6 or 16 minutes. The lowest point of train punctuality in Germany at that time was in August, when only 56.8% of DB long distance trains arrived on time based on the 5-minute delay allowance, and only 76.8% of trains arrived on time based on the 15-minute delay allowance. We've had plenty of stories where family would come so excited to travel on the trains, only to get abandoned at a train station when they had to transfer trains and we had to rush to pick them up because they missed it. Or we've had families see that they can take a 2-hour ICE train to Paris from our house, get so excited to do it, but then went to book it, and because they thought all train travel was cheap, were shocked to see that it would cost them over €100 one way per person to get there. Now, Germany does have a Deutschland ticket, which is a €49 subscription ticket for regional trains and public transport, which does make it more affordable, but also slower. And again, almost anything is better than trying to travel in the US by any form of public transport. But just don't come to Germany and assume everything will be cheap and on time regarding train travel. Instead, build in backup, give yourself as much time as you can to reach your destination in case something does go wrong. And we personally have developed a rule that if there are over 2 changes of trains, to assume something will go wrong on that journey. One thing that everybody always talks about is how much more walkable Germany generally is than anywhere in the US. But what often gets forgotten from what I have noticed is just how much more bikeable Germany generally is than the US as well. And because of this, you need to be very aware that when you come to Germany, you don't walk in the bike lanes. For sure, where I come from in Oklahoma, we have very minimal amounts of bike lanes, but also we don't really walk anywhere, so that even if there are bike lanes, we don't have to look out for walking in them. So when we first came to Germany, we would be walking on the sidewalk only to then hear the behind us or a very loud "Hallo, hallo," telling us to get out of the way, because where we were walking was the bike lane that shares the sidewalk with the pedestrians. In our defense, because of where we are from, we just didn't even know where to look out for it, but we learned even more so once we started biking more around here, just how annoying it is when you are trying to ride through a town and constantly hitting your brakes for people that aren't paying attention to the bike lanes. So to ensure you don't get run over or hear a loud "Hello" behind you, what do you need to look out for? Well, look for signs that look like this, or look for painted bike lanes on the ground like this, or often the bike lanes are different colors from the rest of the sidewalk or road, like red, green, blue, etc. Now, when something isn't walkable, bikeable, or you've decided the German trains aren't cheap enough or reliable enough, you might want to drive while you're in Germany. Well, let me tell you from experience, Germans are excellent drivers, and they do not like it when drivers aren't following the rules of the German road to a T. So, don't come to Germany and drive without having a fairly good knowledge of German traffic rules. Of course, you're a tourist and you legally are allowed to drive temporarily in Germany with your American driver's license, so you're not going to take a German driving class like most Germans would prefer you do before renting a car and driving in German streets. But you will definitely cause some problems, or at least a lot of road rage, if you don't know how to properly drive in a roundabout, or sitting in the left lane on the Autobahn just cruising slowly, or turn right on red lights like you do in the US. And especially since it seems to be everybody's dream to experience no speed limits on the Autobahn, I would highly recommend you be familiar with the road rules and drive very carefully for a few days until you are more comfortable and familiar with how things work before attempting to set a new ground speed record and possibly endangering others on the road. One of the biggest questions we get asked is, can you get away with just speaking English in Germany? My answer to that is also my next don'ts, and that is, don't come to Germany and speak English. But also, don't come to Germany and not speak English. Make sense? So first, although English is widely spoken in Germany, and specifically in the places where tourists will be, a high percentage of Germans will likely speak excellent English. It is still quite rude to come to a foreign country and not at least attempt to speak some of their language. Even if that German you speak is simply asking, "Sprechen Sie English?" you are showing the other person that you respect that you are in their country. Nobody expects you to be fluent in German as a tourist, but I once saw on a blog, not attempting to say a few words to a local in their local language as a tourist is like showing up to a friend's house and not wiping mud off your shoes before stepping inside their home. But on the flip side, and like I said, nobody expects you to be fluent in the language of every country you travel to, so don't come to Germany and not speak English. When we first moved here, I didn't speak any German, and I was a bad offender of this because I would feel guilty that I was speaking English to Germans in Germany, so I would often not speak to people so they wouldn't be forced to speak English. Another example, I had a friend tell me a story I related to so much when he described how his mother, who went in a restaurant, wanted something like ketchup, for example, over here, rather than just saying, "Could I have some ketchup, please?" She would do a strange contortion thing as like, "Ketchup?" As if she was both apologizing for speaking English, trying to not overwhelm the non-native English speaker with too much English, and asking for ketchup at the same time. As I mentioned, where tourists are going, you will find Germans who speak excellent English, so it is easier for everybody if you just speak up, and you'll get so much more out of your trip if you speak and connect with the locals rather than being shy about it because you don't want to disturb them with your language. So overall, learn a few German phrases like "Sprechen Sie English?" "Danke," "Bitte," but also don't be nervous that you won't be able to communicate and speak to Germans in English in a normal, efficient manner to help them out as well. Another big question we always get from family and friends coming to Germany is, should I bring any cash, or how much cash should I bring with me? And my next don't is, don't just bring your credit cards to Germany. You definitely should bring some cash. Maybe you will just be traveling to Germany's large cities and you will have a higher likelihood that you will only use cards there, but Germany still is a cash is king society, and we definitely come into situations where we go to restaurants or stores that only accept cash, or if they do accept cards, they will only actually accept German debit cards. Or we also seem to come across the situation where a restaurant, for example, normally would take card, but their card machine is broken for months and months, and they just take cash for a long period of time rather than immediately trying to get their machine fixed. So you definitely don't want to be stranded without being able to pay for something, and you should bring some cash in those cases. How much is definitely going to be up to your spending habits, where you will be traveling and other obvious factors. But for a 2-week trip or more, you should probably bring a couple €100 in my personal opinion. If you have any other don'ts you think tourists in Germany should be aware of, please leave those in the comments. But to see who made it this far into the video, the random question of the week is, do you think it is okay to drink cappuccinos in the afternoon or just the mornings? Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you in our next video.
Let's rough today.
To not do as a fellow American who, for example, I had a friend tell me a story I related